If your team can ship AI features faster than it can explain who approved what, you do not have speed. You have exposure with a progress bar. And that's not a feature. That's just a faster way to get in trouble. This week is Control Hardening Week. Legal posture, monitoring evidence, sweet governance, fallback ownership. No hype, no panic, no policy theater. And yes, talk about saying no panic on a Monday. Maybe a little panic is good for you. Tiny dose, not a lifestyle. Just what changed, what it means, and what we do this week. Welcome to AI Change Desk, AI news you can use, and change management you can execute. I'm Michael Hanna-Boutros Meyering, and as always, every episode follows the same contract. Context, what changed? Impact, what it means operationally. Action, what to do next week. Quick disclosure before we start. AI-assisted tools were used in parts of the research and production workflow. Final editorial judgment, risk posture, and release approval stayed human-led. And one quick boundary note, this is operational guidance, not legal advice. These are my opinions and not representative of any organization. This is AI Change Desk. Thank you for choosing to tune in. All right, let's connect this to where we've been. Episode 5, Access became the risk once AI could actually do things. Episode 6, Continuity became a control. Fallback was not optional anymore. Episode 7, Security Workflow Contract. Ownership, approval, evidence, rollback. Episode 8, Release validation got pushed closer to the gate. Regression before scale. And now, Episode 9. This week is kind of the all layers at once moment. Wow, that didn't come out right. Let me say it cleaner. Legal, monitoring, procurement, security, continuity, everything, everywhere, all at once, but less stylish and with more approval routing. And when those layers are disconnected, teams can still look fast. They can still sound confident. They can still hit near-term milestones and say, yeah, we've got it. But underneath, the system gets fragile. And that's the part people usually find out about at the worst possible time. So that's what we're fixing today. We're covering 5 signals: OpenAI's legal notice, Anthropic's Institute move, NIST monitoring guidance, Microsoft's suite-level trust packaging, and Podbean's regional policy shift as a continuity warning. Let's run it. Story 1. OpenAI published a legal notice on unauthorized equity transactions. Now, this is not a benchmark headline. This is not a who won the model race headline. This is a claim confidence headline. And honestly, those matter more than teams like to admit. If a material claim cannot be verified, it should not be treated as operational truth. That sounds basic. It is basic, and we still miss it a lot because intake stays narrow. Can the tool do the task? Can we pay for it? Can we deploy this quarter? Okay, good questions, reasonable questions. Still not enough. We also need to ask, can we validate the claims shaping the decision? Because if we can't, uncertainty gets pushed downstream into procurement, board narratives, risk posture, and eventually, operator guidance. And then somebody asks, what evidence did we use? And everybody suddenly becomes very interested in their laptop. Not ideal. So here's the move this week. Add one field in intake. Claim confidence. Verified. Partially verified. Unverified. That's it. Nothing fancy. No giant maturity model with 17 colors. Then, route approvals based on that field. Verified. Standard path. Partially verified. Legal plus policy review before expansion. Unverified. Restricted scope only. No scale decision. And then add one plain language line to the operator memo. External claims not in verified status are non-binding for operational planning. That sentence does a lot of work because it gives people permission to stop pretending marketing language is the same thing as operating truth. Operator line for story 1. If a control claim cannot be evidenced, treat it as risk, not reassurance. Quick example. Say procurement gets a high priority request for a new agent vendor. The demo looks great. Leadership wants speed. Everybody is optimistic. The sales rep is having the best week of their life. Without claim confidence control, the team may approve broad rollout based on partially validated assumptions. With claim confidence control, the request still moves, but it moves cleanly. Capability can be tested. Expansion is limited until claims are verified, and an exception owner is documented if the business still wants to proceed. So you preserve momentum without pretending uncertainty is certainty. Story 2. NIST AI 800-4. Monitoring deployed AI systems. The big shift here is not monitor more, it is monitor as part of control. That matters, because monitoring should sit closer to release, not just show up after something weird happens and everybody starts searching old Teams messages. Most teams still have fragmented monitoring. Engineering sees uptime. Security sees threats. Compliance sees obligations. Product sees user signals. Everybody has metrics. Nobody has one shared threshold map. And the hard question is still this. Who can pause right now if threshold X gets hit? If that answer is fuzzy, your control maturity is probably lower than your slide deck says it is. And look, I say that with love. So run a monitoring minimum. For each critical workflow, track intent, toolpath, action sequence, destination, approver, rollback owner, and threshold event timestamps. Then define 3 threshold states. Investigate, restrict, pause. Each state gets a named owner, a response SLA, and a communication path. No unnamed thresholds. No, the team will figure it out, because the team is often just code for nobody wants to own it yet. Then do one drill. Can we reconstruct a material action chain in under 15 minutes? If no, freeze expansion, fix the evidence path, resume. Not forever, not dramatically, just with discipline. And yes, I know, some people hear that and immediately think, well, there goes innovation. Honestly, no. What kills momentum is not measured control. It is emergency braking, because nobody can explain what happened. Operator line. Monitoring is not a dashboard project. It is release control. Another practical one. Say an agent-assisted workflow starts producing odd escalation behavior. Not catastrophic, just weird enough to bother people. In a weak system, teams spend hours debating, is this model drift, prompt drift, data drift, user behavior, Mercury in retrograde? Nobody knows. In a stronger system, you can reconstruct what changed, who approved it, which threshold was crossed, and who has pause authority. That moves incident handling from argument to execution, which, frankly, is a lot less exhausting. Story 3. Microsoft's suite-level trust framing and Anthropic launching an institute point in the same direction. We are not only buying model quality now, we are buying operating assumptions, identity assumptions, authorization assumptions, evidence assumptions, exception assumptions. If we do not inspect those early, we inherit them by default. And this is where lock-in risk gets disguised as convenience. Now, to be fair, convenience is great. I enjoy convenience. I'm not here to pretend I want my tools to be harder to use for character development. But convenience without portability plans becomes dependency debt. So before adopting a major suite, ask 5 questions. 1. How are non-human identities governed? 2. What logs are exportable and in what usable format? 3. What breaks if we switch vendor or model path? 4. How are exceptions approved and how are they revoked? 5. Who owns rollback authority by workflow? Score each answer, clear, partial, or unclear. If you get more than one unclear, slow rollout, fix the control contract, then continue. Again, not anti-innovation, just anti-regret. Operator line, you are not only buying capability, you are inheriting control assumptions. One concrete example. Two platform choices look similar on paper. Both claim strong security, both claim governance support, both have polished language and very confident diagrams. Option A, great feature velocity, unclear log export format, unclear revocation path for delegated actions. Option B, slightly slower feature cadence, clear export path, clear delegation controls, clear revocation controls. If your operating model depends on evidence portability and clean rollback authority, option B is usually the safer long-term call, even if option A looks faster in a short demo. And that's one of those adult decisions nobody claps for in the moment, but everybody appreciates later. Story 4. Podbean's Regional Dynamic Ad Insertion Change. This is not core model tech. Still matters, because it follows the same control pattern. A third-party policy shift can break operating assumptions overnight, and that means continuity planning has to include policy and platform dependencies, not just infrastructure outages. Because from the operator seat, service down and policy changed can feel basically the same. Both break the workflow, both require response, both ruin somebody's afternoon. So this week, run a channel continuity check. For critical dependencies, record regional exposure, fallback path, named owner, comms template, and recovery target. Then, test one fallback path monthly. 1. Not 10. 1. Let's be realistic here. A team that cannot execute one fallback path calmly is not going to suddenly become a Navy SEAL unit during a platform change. Operator line. Continuity is not only infrastructure, it is dependency discipline. Now, let's get practical. What does this actually look like in a real week? Monday. Legal flags uncertain claim confidence on a partner input. Tuesday. A monitoring threshold breach appears in a customer workflow. Wednesday. An internal team requests broader suite permissions for speed. Thursday. A regional policy shift affects distribution behavior. That looks like 4 separate issues. It is actually one control issue. Do we have a clear contract for authority, evidence, and fallback? Mature teams handle this with one control desk owner, one queue, one threshold map, one memo rhythm. Immature teams handle it with 4 owners, 5 meetings, 3 contradictory messages, and then a Friday urgent alignment call that should have been an email but somehow was neither urgent nor alignment. We know which one scales better. So let's use a concrete 30-60-90 sequence. Days 0 to 30. Add claim confidence field in intake. Define monitoring minimum fields on top 5 workflows. Name threshold owners for investigate, restrict, and pause. Assign one fallback owner per critical dependency. Days 31 to 60. Run evidence export drills. Define exception routing and expiration rules. Track operator clarity pulse weekly. Track approval latency for elevated actions. Days 61 to 90. Add portability checks to major suite decisions. Run one vendor substitution tabletop on a high-impact workflow. Bring control scorecard into leadership review. Require rollback readiness pass before expansion. No giant transformation deck needed. No phase 1 of 12. No 100-slide masterpiece nobody reads. Just sequence and ownership. And because this always comes up, quick FAQ. Question 1. Are we slowing down innovation with this? No. Weak controls create emergency stops. Strong controls preserve usable speed. Question 2. What if our data isn't perfect yet? We are not waiting for perfect. We are requiring decision-grade evidence, enough to support threshold decisions under pressure. Question 3. Who owns all of this? One control desk owner for weekly coordination, named workflow owners for execution, because shared ownership with no decider is usually just delay in business casual clothing. Quick leadership calibration before we close. What should look better in 30 days if we do this right? First, approval quality should improve. Not necessarily always faster on elevated actions, but cleaner, less ambiguity, less rework. Second, evidence scramble should drop. When someone asks, "Why was this approved?" the answer should come from records, not memory. and definitely not from whoever sounds most confident in the meeting. Third, exception handling should stabilize. You may see a short-term spike because people finally know what to ask for. That's okay. Messy visibility is still better than hidden confusion. Fourth, operator clarity should go up. People should be able to answer 4 questions quickly. What is allowed? What is restricted? Who approves exceptions? Who can pause now? Fifth, rollback readiness should become routine, not dramatic, not heroic, just normal release hygiene. And what failure patterns are we trying to avoid this quarter? 1. Control language with no owner. If nobody owns it, it's decorative. 2. Policy updates with no workflow updates. If operators cannot see what changed in action terms, policy is invisible. 3. Alerts with no threshold authority. That gives you noise, not response. 4. Exceptions with no expiration. Temporary becomes permanent. That's how drift gets a reserved parking spot. 5. Treating continuity like infra-only work. Policy and platform dependencies can break operating plans just as hard. Now the weekly block. 45 minutes, 1 owner. Minute 0 to 10, signal triage. Legal, monitoring, suite, continuity. Minute 10 to 20, exposure map. Top 5 workflows, action tier, evidence readiness, fallback readiness, approval clarity. Minute 20 to 30, control decisions, threshold owners, exception path, rollback owner, next validation checkpoint. Minute 30 to 40, operator memo. What changed? What is approved? What is restricted? Who approves exceptions? Next review date. Minute 40 to 45, accountability lock, names and due dates. No floating to do, no mystery ownership, no let's revisit offline unless we actually mean it. And track 6 metrics for 4 weeks. Overscoped permissions, non-reconstructible action rate, approval latency, exception volume, rollback readiness pass rate, operator clarity pulse. If those trend wrong, slow expansion, repair the control layer, then continue. And if you want a ready-to-use operator memo, here's a plain language template. Subject, control update, week of March 16th. What changed? Claim confidence checks are now required for new, high-impact vendors and partner claims. Monitoring thresholds are now mapped to investigate, restrict, and pause states. Suite expansion requests now require operating model readout. Regional dependency fallback owners are now assigned. What is approved? Existing read and draft workflows remain approved under current controls. Elevated workflows remain approved, where evidence paths and rollback owners are already documented. What is restricted? Any expansion request with unverified claim confidence. Any workflow without a reconstructible action trail. Any change request with unclear pause authority. Who approves exceptions? Control desk owner plus legal or policy reviewer for claim confidence exceptions. Workflow owner plus security owner for threshold or monitoring exceptions. Next review date. Monday control desk, same cadence next week. That memo is not fancy. It is useful, and useful beats fancy when teams are moving fast. Honestly, useful beats fancy in government more often than not. One final calibration. If your team is asking, where do we start first on Monday? Start here. First, evidence path. If you cannot reconstruct actions quickly, everything else is downstream noise. Second, pause authority. If nobody can stop execution clearly, you do not have control. Third, claim confidence. If critical assumptions are unverified, scale should be constrained. Fourth, fallback ownership. If dependency shifts break your route, who reroutes and by when? That 4-step order usually gets teams from confusion to traction pretty fast. Let me give you 3 quick audience lenses before we close. If you're a leader, your move this week is to ask one hard question in staff. Which high-impact AI workflow can we not fully evidence yet? Not to blame anybody, not to perform concern, just to identify where confidence is running ahead of control. If you're a manager, your move this week is to cleanly separate routine approvals, elevated approvals, and pause authority. When those collapse into one bucket, people either overblock work or overpermit work. Neither scales. If you're an operator, your move this week is simple. For each workflow you touch, know your allowed actions, know your escalation path, and know who owns rollback. If one of those is unclear, raise it early. Please. Save future you the trouble. And yes, this can sound like a lot of control talk. I get that. It is not the flashiest conversation in AI. No one is making a dramatic movie trailer about approval pathways. But the reason it matters is practical. The cost of unclear controls is not theoretical. It shows up in weekends, emergency meetings, trust repair cycles, and those strange moments where everybody is in the same call but nobody can answer the basic question. Clear controls are not bureaucracy. They are how teams protect momentum. Before we close, 3 decisions to lock this week. Decision 1. What is our evidence floor for elevated AI actions? Not ideal state, minimum acceptable. Decision 2. Who owns the pause decision by workflow? Name the person, not the team. Because incidents do not wait for committee routing. Decision 3. Which dependencies can break us fastest, and do we have tested fallbacks? Pick the top 3, run one drill, learn, improve. And if this feels repetitive, good. Repetition is part of operating discipline. We are trying to build a reflex here, not just produce a memo that sounds smart for 12 minutes and then disappears into a folder. The goal is that by next month, your team can answer the core control questions quickly, without scrambling, without finger pointing, and without guessing. If you keep one sentence from episode 9, keep this one. Capability can scale fast. Control trust has to scale faster. This week, harden claim confidence, monitoring evidence, sweet assumptions, and fallback ownership. That is how we stay fast without becoming fragile. Listener question. Where is your biggest exposure right now? Claim confidence, monitoring evidence, or fallback ownership? This is AI Change Desk. Until next time. This is AI Change Desk. See you next time.